is easy to consume, is easily and flexible to extend. As a technologist, I think at the heart of keeping your agility is to optimize processes based on a data-driven approach. There's two facets: gather the data to make the decision, but then automate the implementation of those decisions. So when Will Smith says the best things are on the other side of fear, I try to tell myself that when I'm scared to do something, something great is going to come out of that.
Red Hat is an enterprise software development organization. We work with the upstream community to develop enterprise-ready, rock-steady open source technology. And then we take that to the industry to allow customers to utilize the benefits of not just Red Hat technology, but open source technology. There is always a demand from every organization now to do more with less. More importantly, it's got more to do with how do they do more with less and then drive innovation on top, because that's one of the things that a lot of CEOs are saying to their CIOs. Help me drive innovation at a company level. I don't need you to be a cost center anymore, actually. I need you to be an innovation engine. I care about the individuals within my team, and I care about everybody, within the team. And I believe that's one of the best ways to get the best out of people, is to make them feel wanted. And there's no secret in that. That's just part of human nature.
We do a lot of fun stuff, you're all clear. I think all that we do is fun in different domains. So if I'm sitting somewhere in a large institution which needs funding, and on the other side of somebody that requires funding, we help connect the dots and ensure that this process works in an efficient way. Cloud forces you, first of all, to make choices. So do I need 5 applications to do the same thing? I can just have 1. And then in the process of migrating, do I kill something which I knew I wanted to do everywhere, but I didn't take the time? So cloud becomes like a trigger to do some rationalization applications. Technology people tend to be very focused on the what you do things, the process, the step, the engineering part, and sometimes lose track about the end state of what you want to reach. So I see part of my role actually to connecting those dots, saying, okay, you see what you do, yeah, but the bigger picture is, this is why there's a problem out there that they want us to do. What we want to see as outcomes, they use the thing we have built.
We democratize technology to make it approachable to many enterprises in a way that is easy to consume, is easily and flexible to extend. As a technologist, I think at the heart of keeping your agility is to optimize processes based on a data-driven approach. There's two facets: gather the data to make the decision, but then automate the implementation of those decisions. So when Will Smith says the best things are on the other side of fear, I try to tell myself that when I'm scared to do something, something great is going to come out of that.
Red Hat is an enterprise software development organization. We work with the upstream community to develop enterprise-ready, rock-steady open source technology. And then we take that to the industry to allow customers to utilize the benefits of not just Red Hat technology, but open source technology. There is always a demand from every organization now to do more with less. More importantly, it's got more to do with how do they do more with less and then drive innovation on top, because that's one of the things that a lot of CEOs are saying to their CIOs. Help me drive innovation at a company level. I don't need you to be a cost center anymore, actually. I need you to be an innovation engine. I care about the individuals within my team, and I care about everybody, within the team. And I believe that's one of the best ways to get the best out of people, is to make them feel wanted. And there's no secret in that. That's just part of human nature.
We do a lot of fun stuff, you're all clear. I think all that we do is fun in different domains. So if I'm sitting somewhere in a large institution which needs funding, and on the other side of somebody that requires funding, we help connect the dots and ensure that this process works in an efficient way. Cloud forces you, first of all, to make choices. So, do I need 5 applications to do the same thing? I can just have 1. And then in the process of migrating, do I kill something which I knew I wanted to do everywhere, but I didn't take the time? So cloud becomes like a trigger to do some rationalization applications. Technology people tend to be very focused on the what you do things, the process, the step, the engineering part, and sometimes lose track about the end state of what you want to reach. So I see part of my role actually to connecting those dots, saying, okay, you see what you do, yeah, but the bigger picture is, sees why there's a problem out there that they want us to do. What we want to see as outcomes, they use the thing we have built.
We democratize technology to make it approachable to many enterprises in a way that is easy to consume, is easily and flexible to extend. As a technologist, I think at the heart of keeping your agility is to optimize processes based on a data-driven approach. There's 2 facets. Gather the data to make the decision, but then automate the implementation of those decisions. So when Will Smith says the best things are on the other side of fear, I try to tell myself that when I'm scared to do something great is going to come out of that.
Red Hat is an enterprise software development organization. We work with the upstream community to develop enterprise-ready, rock-steady open source technology. And then we take that to the industry to allow customers to utilize the benefits of not just Red Hat technology, but open source technology. There is always a demand from every organization now to do more with less. More importantly, it's got more to do with how do they do more with less and then drive innovation on top, because that's one of the things that a lot of CEOs are saying to their CIOs. Help me drive innovation at a company level. I don't need you to be a cost center anymore, actually. I need you to be an innovation engine. I care about the individuals within my team, and I care about everybody, within the team. And I believe that's one of the best ways to get the best out of people, is to make them feel wanted. And there's no secret in that. That's just part of human nature.
We do a lot of fun stuff, you're all clear. I think all that we do is fun in different domains. So if I'm sitting somewhere in a large institution which needs funding, and on the other side, we have somebody that requires funding, we help connect the dots and ensure that this process works in an efficient way. Cloud forces you, first of all, to make choices. So, do I need 5 applications to do the same thing? I can just have 1. And then in the process of migrating, do I kill something which I knew I wanted to do everywhere, but I didn't take the time? So cloud becomes like a trigger to do some rationalization applications. Technology people tend to be very focused on the what you do things, the process, the step, the engineering part, and sometimes lose track about the end state of what you want to reach. So I see part of my role actually to connecting those dots, saying, okay, you see what you do, yeah, but the bigger picture is, sees why there's a problem out there that they want us to do. What we want to see as outcomes, they use the thing we have built.
Hola.
Benvenuti.
Witamy.
Bienvenue. Ciao ragazzi.
Bienvenidas.
Welcome. Witam.
Willkommen. Welkom.
Benvenuti.
Welcome bij CIONEXT.
Welcome to CIONEXT,
The biggest
independent
digital leaders community in the world. At CIONEXT, we bring CIOs and digital leaders together.
We help our members on a day-to-day basis with their business challenges
And live unforgettable experience.
But also to collaborate and to get inspired.
Welcome to CIONEXT International.
The international community for digital leaders that help you realize your ambition.
Okay, and welcome everybody. My name is Hendrik Dekkers. I'm the founder of CIONET, and it's my pleasure and my privilege to welcome all of you to this 19th edition of CIONEXT. We are going to talk about navigating digital complexity, about increasing business agility, and doing that while mastering the cloud. So how can we use the cloud to reduce our complexity and increase our agility. And for that, we have put together a wonderful panel here today. So I will be joined in a moment by Vasco Nunez from Swiss Re, by Antonio Queiroz from Euroclear, Rasmus Hutt from Lego, Ali Arsanjani from Google, Carl Davis Barrett from Microsoft, and Colin Fisher from Red Hat. A very, very beautiful panel that we have here today with us. But before we get started, I first would like to thank the team at Red Hat that has co-organized this today here with CIONET. I would like to thank Red Hat for giving us the opportunity to organize this, I think, very, very important conference. Now, what we have done in preparation of this conference, of course, we have put together the nice panel, we have talked to all of them, but we have also interviewed Antonio, Carl, and Colin in a long format leadership deep dive video. So if you go to CIONET.tv, there you will find the hour, sometimes an hour and a half long conversations that I have with top digital leaders and top IT executives from around the globe. And especially check out the interview that we did with Antonio, Carl, and Colin in preparation of this conference. And the more than 120 interviews that we have done there, several of these are then condensed in what we call recipes for digital success. And we put these recipes together. Our friend Roger Cameron does that in our CIONET cookbooks. And so we have already published 2 editions of the CIONET cookbook in collaboration with Red Hat and Intel. And we're now working on the 3rd edition that will come out next year. So if you want to get your hands on edition 1, edition 2, go to cionet.com/cookbook and make sure to get your copy. And by the way, it's free if you're a CIONET member. If you're not a member yet, make sure to join our community. So if you're in a large, mid-sized organization, you're a top digital leader in there, you're very welcome to join our community so that you can also join us on the big member conference that we're going to do. It's a local conference, so it has an international part and local community events combined in one big CIO Fest. And that's going to run on the 21st of March next year, where we will launch the cookbook and where we will be discussing the development of digital leadership. It's so important, the digital leadership in organizations today. So we'll be looking at how CIOs and other top digital leaders can help their C-suite colleagues, their CEOs, the CFOs, and so on, to really understand, make them more data and digital savvy, how they can develop themselves, how they can develop the leadership and the digital leadership skills of their own teams. That's the focus of this international conference, member conference that we're going to do on the 21st of March. But enough about that. Let's go to the conference of today. So we have a very, very nice panel with us today. So let's bring on all the different panelists on stage here. Here we are, and here you see all of them. So a very warm welcome to Vasco, to Carl, to Colin, to Rasmus, to Antonio, and to Ali. And so what I would like to get started with first is to give each of you the opportunity to introduce yourself. So if you could tell us, who are you? What is your role? Tell us a little bit about your company, and then also tell us what is the main business challenge that your company is working on today. And Antonio, why don't you kick it off first?
Sure. Thanks, Hendrik, for that. And I'm very happy to be with you and at the panel. So, Antonio Queiroz, I'm the Chief Digital Officer of Euroclear. I have a background where I spent the first part of my career building companies, so fintechs and startups, and then moved to banking. And joined Euroclear 5 years ago. My main job is actually twofold. It's trying to help the company define where we want to be in terms of client experience and digital, and then actually making it happen. And the cloud is part of that. I would say that our biggest challenges, and I'm very keen to hear my peers, is actually trying to do three things at the same time. is trying to continue to improve the current business we operate and ensure it becomes more digital, more data, more cloud-oriented, and at the same time, create new capabilities to help us expand to other business domains. It's about making this balance, this trade-off between improving what we do today and enable the business we want to do tomorrow. I would say that's like my biggest thing that keeps me not awake, but busy, actually.
Yeah. And Euroclear is a big organization, right, Antonio? Can you give us some numbers, kind of the money, the people, and so on?
So if you're not into banking, so we tend to be described as the notary of the world. So we keep track of transactions. So we hold 37 trillion years of assets. So if you want to have a sense of that, you take a 1 and you have like 10 zeros that go with it. That's basically what we do. We are 400,000, 5,000 more or less, spread between Belgium and India. And we kind of see ourselves a bit of the glue of the financial system. So we ensure that in the end of the day, transactions and balances are kept scored across the world. So we connect across the planet with the center or the core of what we do in Brussels, but with a very international business across the globe.
Okay, super. And you're originally from Portugal and working today in Brussels, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We have a Portuguese thing going on here, Vasco. You are from Portugal as well, but you are in Zurich today. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, your company, and the big challenges that you're working on.
No, thanks, Hendrik, and great pleasure to be here today. So yeah, well, as Hendrik mentioned, I'm Portuguese. I run our cloud and infrastructure teams at Swiss Re. So if I think about my role, it's primarily about making sure that we drive our common platforms, common technologies across the company, and this covers different areas, right? So of course, private public clouds, how we build software with our DevSecOps practices, how do we platform engineering and infrastructure engineering, service management, digital workplace. So a very important part of our IT landscape. Maybe a few words about Swiss Re. So for the ones of you that don't know Swiss Re, it's one of the largest leading providers of reinsurance, insurance, and other forms of insurance-based risk transfer. I think the easiest way to understand is really what is in our mission, which is something I personally relate a lot to. And what we have as a mission is, actually our vision is to help making the world more resilient with the risk transfer solutions we provide. The company was actually founded almost 160 years ago. We celebrate this year our 160th birthday. And we operate a global business with more than 80 offices. And actually part of the business model is really the opportunity to diversify risk around the globe. To your question, Hendrik, about the main business challenge we face today, well, I would say there's probably a few, but one that I think is very close to home is the transition we're making, or actually the augmentation we're making of our business model, not to think just about risk transfer, but also to think about how can we work on risk prevention and mitigation, right? So typically our businesses, there is something that happens and we provide payouts after an event has occurred. But if you think about the opportunity that's coming with technology, that is coming with all the the transformation that is happening, actually some of the risks can be better prevented and even mitigated at source. And we're spending good time understanding how to get there. And in this context, I think the role of IT is transforming. If you think about the original core business where IT is very much there to support the core, the risk transfer solutions and so forth, there's a lot more that comes now with this opportunity. Think about what we can do with data, analyzing, gathering, again, going back to this notion of deriving insight and using that insight for predicting and making risk, understanding risks more accurately and even preventing some of those from happening. So exciting times to be in reinsurance. Back to you.
Okay. Super. Thank you so much, Vasco. And to understand, the size of the company is a little bit similar to the size of Euroclear, 4,000 or 5,000 people, half in IT, something like that?
Yeah, so overall, Swiss Re is about 15,000 colleagues, and I would imagine that IT is about a fifth of that, give or take, right?
Okay, super. Thank you for that. Rasmus, let's go to Copenhagen in Denmark. The most fun company in the world to work for, I can imagine. Rasmus, tell us all about yourself, your role at Lego a little bit, of course, and what you see as the main business challenge today.
Sure, happy to, and thanks for having me here. So let's start with myself. Rasmus, I'm a Dane in Denmark, so nothing exotic to see here. And I've been working for the Lego Group for 2.5 years, actually this week, and quite happy and excited to be here. I have a background in engineering, so I'm an engineer by trade, but today I head up what we call developer experience and cloud foundation at the Lego Group. What that really means is that I'm responsible for 12 product teams that caters for, well, everything that that has to do with leading us to cloud. Cloud enablement functions, cloud migration function, cloud FinOps, and I also do developer products. So developer portal, developer tooling, developer productivity, and developer relations. So creating excitement, because we want to be the best place for developers to work, where we have our digital hubs. And then, as any good company, we invest in generative AI. So I have put that on my wing as well. And actually also run our hosting capabilities, even though I am a bit of a cloud hogger. So if you want to drive down traditional hosting, give it to the cloud guy, right? I also look after that, and we'll talk a little bit later about edge capabilities, which comes from cloud in my book. My job is to make sure we deliver on time, on quality, and of course within the TCO given to us. But I also side gig as a principal engineer for the Lego Group, so help decide on our architecture direction, write the cloud adoption strategies, and our hosting strategies, etc. So a few hats on for me. I love technology, by the way.
And you love Lego as well, so that's good. You love. So what's the main business challenge that you see in the big toy company today, Rasmus?
Yeah, I think anyone that's been around a kid lately would, of a certain age, they would realize that they have one of these screens very close to themselves. One of the challenges we have, we are deeply rooted in the brick, right? We are a physical toy company. But how do we enrich that experience with digital? I mean, that is a challenge that we have taken. We have some good answers, but we are not done, right? We want to build on how we mix up the digital experience with the physical play experience. This drives a business outcome. We want to reach more kids. We believe of learning through play, and we believe we want to make an impact in the world by giving that experience to every kid out there, right? But of course, we also have traditional business challenges. We are 91 years old, so we can't beat Swiss Re here. But when you are of a certain age, you also have a classic core in your digital environment, and you need to deal with, and you want to achieve this business agility that, well, just open the news, you will see the volatility of anywhere in the world, and how do you, through digital, achieve your business agility. And of course, we face that challenge as well. And then accelerate innovation. Who doesn't want that? I know it's said before and probably by everyone, but actually these all combines, right? Being able to respond to market needs, being able to reach more children, being able to innovate and stay in a blue ocean and give that digital physical play experience. We need a digital muscle to be able to deliver on that.
Okay, super. Thank you for that introduction, Rasmus. Let's go to Carl. Carl, you are originally from Malta, and now you live in the beautiful Munich in Germany. Tell us all about yourself, your role in Microsoft, maybe a bit about Microsoft as well, and what you see as the biggest challenge there.
Thanks, Hendrik, and thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be on this call, and I've traded sun for mountains, and I can't complain living in Germany. Today I'm in Darmstadt, ready for the keynote for Red Hat Summit, which happens tomorrow. A bit about myself. I'm 15 years at Microsoft. My company that I work for, is a huge 220,000 plus organization. My role is working with the partner success organization, and that means we have to help partners embrace innovative, disruptive technologies and then go to market and make money. Partners help us scale. Partners help us help customers adopt our technology. And so, it's great pleasure and a great challenge nowadays working with those partners because, innovation budgets are shrinking and partners need to turn around solutions and go to market much faster than they did before. If the budget is smaller, then the win must be quicker. And I see, some parallels in the challenges we've had in the past with the challenges we have now. If you look back 10 years ago, we were challenged with, cloud. We weren't a first mover when AWS was there, and we were a challenger. And so we had to be all in, and we had to kind of pivot that 220-person organization towards a new goal, which was off-premises into the cloud. That's behind us now, in a sense. I don't think the war is over with the cloud, but if you look at OpenAI and AI and generative AI, as Rasmus mentioned, that's a new challenge where we replace the word challenge with opportunity. And I think now is the opportunity for our partners to embrace this disruptive technique and to go out there. But we are doing this from a leadership position now. So we are no longer kind of saying, well, AWS does that, we need to catch up. We are trend setting. We are hitting the kind of hard questions from our customers, from our partners, which is, what is responsible AI? It's not, how do I implement AI, but how do I do it properly? How do I make sure that, I don't have bias in my models, etc. Okay. So that leadership position is super interesting for us and a challenge across the company and our organization.
As they say, may we live in interesting times? Well, we certainly do, right? Absolutely.
Correct.
So thank you so much, Karel. Ali, Dr. Ali Arsanjani, you come to us from San Diego, if I'm correct. A very warm welcome. Tell us all about yourself, what you do at Google, and what you see as the main challenges today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Hendrik, and thanks for having me here today. This is a pleasure and honor to be here on this illustrious panel with the audience that is with us today. So my responsibility is to lead the expansion of our ecosystem within Google Cloud through partners. And today, more than anything else, we're faced with disruptive innovation. And the 30, 60, 90-day strategies that we used to have often been replaced with 3, 6, 9-day strategies and challenges and how to overcome them. So with this very rapid pace of disruptive innovation, we're here to support our partners how to navigate the complexities of this breakneck speed innovation and disruption that is happening, while at the same time not just focusing on the technology, but focusing on the business outcomes, because at the end of the day, customers and clients have to deliver business value for their clients. And so very specifically in terms of cloud partner engineering, we've been leveraging the very long history of Google's innovation, specifically in the areas of artificial intelligence and machine learning. We've been in this space for many years. We've invented essentially all the components that are now being used to leverage the complexity of generative AI, which, by the way, we used to call natural language processing until a year ago or so. And I've personally been in this space for 30, 40 years from an academic and industry perspective. But the key thing here is, how do we help our partners co-innovate with us so that they can not only overcome the risks of being disrupted through these technologies, but rather keeping them aligned in such a way that they can still meet their challenging business objectives that are not going to go away. And so we help our partners get onboarded onto our platform, help them very specifically through a center of excellence in terms of how to navigate the waters for artificial intelligence, especially generative AI, which we've helped pioneer, and to bring to bear the necessities and the pressure of competition, acceleration, and innovation, so that they can have not only the strategic vision implemented, but the short-term vision, the medium-term vision implemented in a way that can take them, they can survive and grow and flourish and thrive into the strategic vision that we have going forward.
Super. Thank you so much, Ali. And yeah, it's correct. If you look at a little bit back at the history of cloud computing, has been growing and growing, and now it's very, very mature, I would say, but keeps on growing. AI has gone through summers and winters and springs and winter again, and now finally it's flourishing, as there's no stopping anymore, apparently. So super, super interesting. Colin, normally you would be in the beautiful Cotswolds or working in the London office. Today you are in Las Vegas. Please introduce yourself, Colin, your role at Red Hat a little bit, and where you see the biggest challenge today.
Okay, thank you, Hendrik. Thank you for the invitation. So yeah, you're correct. I'm normally based in Oxfordshire, just to the east of London. I'm currently at the AWS Summit in Las Vegas, so it's pretty early in the morning here, but it's a pleasure to be here. So as you said, Colin Fisher, I work as I have a global role at Red Hat, responsible for making sure actually that our customers have the capabilities that they need to be able to consume Red Hat solutions and Red Hat open source technology in the cloud. So what does that mean? Well, it means that I'm responsible for our cloud ecosystem business at Red Hat on a global level. And that involves working with my two friends here from Google and Google and Microsoft, of course, but it also means working with thousands of other cloud provider partners around the world as well. The one thing that we're seeing quite a bit of now is everybody is predominantly a cloud provider, right? So every partner in the world now says they're a cloud services organization. So I've been doing that for approximately 12, 13 years at Red Hat, but I've been in the IT industry now for just coming up to 30 years. But I've been involved in virtualization and cloud computing now since 2003, when I first joined VMware a long time ago. So that's a little bit about me and the role. The company, Red Hat, is the world's leading open source software development company. 10,000 employees, turnover of approximately 4 billion, there or thereabouts. Yep. Recently purchased by IBM a few years back. Which has been great, actually. Honestly, it's been great. It's allowed us to get additional reach into the marketplace, help more customers with their cloud journeys. But more importantly, it's allowed Red Hat to just carry on doing what we've always done, which is drive open source technology into the marketplace. So the customers.
Number one business challenge, Colin, in your organization.
Yeah, look, for a vendor like Red Hat, it's very simple. We've been around for 30 odd years now. We have a lot of customers that have traditionally used our technologies on premise, in their private clouds, for all the right reasons. If we look at RHEL, the number one open source Linux distribution in the marketplace, but those customers now are saying, hey, we're moving to the cloud. So we're on this journey. We're moving to the cloud. We need to make sure that all of the technologies are available. And for an organization like Red Hat, as it is for a lot of vendors that have come from a kind of a traditional on-premise background, it's now very much about making sure that we stay front and center with our customers, because obviously as we move to the cloud, there's a lot more choices than there has been traditionally or historically.
Okay, super. So there we have it. This is the beautiful panel that we have, clear who is who and what our challenges are. And we have huge organizations here with us, older organizations, younger organizations. We have a very, very interesting mix. So I'm sure that also the business strategies are very different. Therefore, the IT strategies are very different, and therefore the cloud strategies are very different. So that's really what I would like to open the discussion with. And Antonia, I would like to go back to you first. So at Euroclear, I've learned from the long conversation that you had that you're really focusing on modernizing the core, to make sure that you have the right talents, that you innovate with new products and services. But can you maybe describe us a little bit a step-by-step approach to cloud adoption that you're taking, and where that fits in the overall IT strategy, so the cloud strategy, and what you have learned from the different phases there?
Sure. I think what a lot of my colleagues said resonates what I'm going to tell afterwards, in the sense of we took a very conscious decision to be very progressive and to balance at the same time risk and experimentation and innovation. So we decided more or less 4 or 5 years ago, it was a very conscious decision, saying, well, first of all, we're going to engage with our regulators to explain what we want to do. So before we act, we said we are going to elaborate a plan that's going, first of all, to start with non-critical applications, so the things that we were comfortable to try out, and we call them out, saying, well, actually, we're going to start with this thing, which is a SLA, level 3, level 4, so non-critical things we want to do. We're going to build capabilities. We're going to try out. We're going to check what works. We're going to tell you what are we going to learn out of it. And then when we are ready for that, we're going to set up the next cycle of iterations. So we did that. We started with a non-critical application. It went live. We're quite happy with the success. We elaborated with the regulators. And we said, now it's the next step of the next 9 to 12 months. This is the next step of applications, up to the point where 4 years down the road, we now have critical applications that not only run on the cloud, but for instance, use the LT technology, where we are both comfortable on our end what we have done and the regulators are. So I think our recipe for success is a very conscious, risk-driven approach where we iterate in small steps, so 9 to 12 months, where each time we want to build something that makes sense from a business point of view, and with underlying tech capabilities that progressively mature. And it's not a and thing. So we are constantly also modernizing what we do on-prem. So we continue to invest on our core infrastructure while we build these capabilities. But I think that the key message is elaborate what you want to do. So every plan you explain to all your stakeholders outside of your organization and inside, and then very consciously and disciplinedly execute and build up as you go along. So you always discover things you're not aware in the beginning. And it's always for us a need in what we do, because again, we have a very heavily regulated industry. You need to be very mindful about being predictable, what you say, what you do, and you do what you say. So I think that's in our journey. It's probably the most important thing, is to have a very conscious, progressive approach, and to be very predictable and transparent about what you learn in the process, and then adapt for the next cycle.
Yeah, so it's a step-by-step hybrid cloud approach where you start with the non-critical applications and then move into more and more critical applications, I can imagine. But how does how do you go for one hyperscaler, one public cloud provider? Is, I understood, your strategy, right?
Yeah, so we were very intensive already when some of the technology stacks out there. So it was for us very obvious choice. First of all, to leverage that experience we had in one particular stack of technology, build upon that. And now we're at the phase we are considering to have more of an hybrid approach or a dual provider thing, because it's both a way to diversify risk, but also to have to leverage capabilities of others. But for us, it was kind of a natural transition. We were happy and comfortable with a particular set of technologies and just leverage that to say, well, actually, if you want to make the journey easier to start, let's not try to jump before we can actually walk. So we choose the domain where we're comfortable and we build upon that, which I think is also a way to minimize risk, because we're not trying to change everything in one go. We said, we know this technology stack, we know the partner, they have capabilities, they are relatively comparable, which maybe my two colleagues would disappear because everybody has a different take on it. But in the end, for us, it was actually very straightforward and to begin to learn what we are. Now, 4 years down the road, as you mentioned, Hendrik, we are considering to go more hybrid or to more dual provider, which is first a natural step. But it was like starting first with we are comfortable from a tech stack point of view, then expanding that to the cloud was like the obvious way for us to go forward.
Okay, so that also means if you're going hybrid, you're not doing a lift and shift and bringing everything as is to the cloud. So that also means that you have to develop two teams that you have to invest in. So what was the approach there? Because sometimes people say that cloud really needs a cultural shift in an IT organization as well, right?
Yeah, I think we tried to do two things at the same time. So we went to the market to hire people and skills we didn't have, because we thought it was the best way to accelerate our own learning was to have people within the organization have done it before, but you don't start from scratch with like a white sheet of paper, and at the same time upskill our own staff. Because what we found is relevant for us is that when you combine the understanding of our landscape, the processes, the tools, the way we operate, with the functional knowledge of what we do, again, we have a very particular business within capital markets, and then we combine it with tech savviness. So our teams today are a combination of people which have done this before in other environments, because they bring the experience, the expertise, they've walked the talk, so they know the difference between what is supposed to work on slides and it doesn't work in real life, and our teams that bring the understanding of the landscape, our process, and the business knowledge. So, and we find again that taking again the recipe thing, the right ingredients, a combination of people you upskill and upstaff, and bringing expertise from outside and sometimes from our partners to help the journey will become more accelerated.
Okay, super. Now, I'm just checking, we've got hundreds of people joining this conference on all the different platforms. So we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and so on our own platform as well, where there's lots of people joining in, and our members have access to the chat. So if you're a CIONET member and following us on our own web stack, then please let us know if you have any questions. Also, an open invitation to the rest of the panel here. If you would like to challenge the other panelists, please be my guest. I would love to go now to Rasmus, and because Lego, Rasmus, you already said that you work with product teams. You're responsible for 12 product teams. Your architecture of the organization is completely different, and therefore your IT strategy and your cloud strategy is completely different. Tell us the big Lego story and how cloud computing is really facilitating the transition that you're going through to a digital company, and more specifically now with where you're going with your digitizing your core processes and products, which is key, I would think.
Sure. Well, you need to know about us that where we are a manufacturing company, right? We produce our own quality products. We're also a retail company. We have direct channels to our consumers and engaged a lot with our consumers directly to build those experiences that we want to build. And then we are also a digital company, right? And I think that is the bravery that underpins what I will share now. Do you have the bravery from pulling digital out of being a cost into being a business capability? And that's where we are. So yes, we have left the IT department behind. Actually, the Lego Group doesn't have an IT department. What we have is we rather be inspired by the pure digital companies. Microsoft and Google are on the call here today, and we have been inspired by their organization. So we have product teams, 220 product teams, and of course we have the traditional IT disciplines, right? But they are organized in product teams that delivers value outcome. We follow an objectives and key results model, which also comes from Google, OKRs, and that way we have changed the paradigm of the IT department, and we actually have an internal saying that we are stronger than Conway's law. And for those of you that doesn't know Conway's law, it's about he was an engineer, and he said that any organization building a system will build a system that resembles the organization's communication structures. But what we are aiming for is a loosely coupled architecture. Some also say we use a microservices architecture. So why don't you build an organization that is loosely coupled? And you do that by organizing yourself in product teams. Every product teams then have, of course, outcomes. Outcomes they need to deliver. And well, we have an edge computing team. They deliver edge capabilities where it's needed. These are actually classic hosting capability, but they are loosely coupled from everything else. right? We have cloud platform services, which are delivered out of here. So that's a little bit about our organization and operating model. But what I can share a little bit is what is it that we're trying to build here? Because at the end of the day, it's about the business capabilities, right? And I already alluded to the business agility that I think every company is driving towards, right? So how do we achieve that? And basically, there's 3 drivers that I recommend you look at if you want to follow in our footsteps. And that is drive towards APIs. That will give you loosely coupled systems. Data, this is not going to be a surprise to you, the last one at least, and cloud. And today we are talking about cloud, right? So what is it that the cloud gives an enterprise? Well, I think there's a few traits here that are pretty cool. And one is the extreme multi-tenancy, right? So when you log into Microsoft or Google platform, you don't hear about the neighbors, right? This is multi-tenant by default. That also means that when you're designing your own application, you can put them in each and every container, which means that, again, they will be loosely coupled from each other. I can also share we have left the corporate network. That is a design of the 80s, and even before that, where you had a perimeter defense corporate network. Everything was well connected. You were protected inside that. Well, at least you thought. I also worked at Maersk before Lego, and I have a little anecdote we can share if we have time. But the corporate network is not safe, right? We are beyond that. And cloud gives us this extreme multi-tenancy. Then it is transaction-based. So if you design it right, well, you pay for what you use, right? So when we have a Black Friday, that's when we have our biggest bill. The weekend we just had. But then again, that's also where we make a fair share of revenue. So you design for transaction-based architecture, so it follows your other business patterns, right? And then it allows you to empower your organization because you just set them free by them building in their own container. They integrate via APIs. They pay for what they use. Now every product team can move at the speed they need to. Right? They don't have to ask anyone. Their security, their blast zone is their own. Of course, it needs to be secure, right? Cost-wise, it's their own bill at the end of the day. And they are not impacting anyone else's risk picture. So they can move at the pace they need. Developers have every opportunity to be awesome every day, and they don't have to ask anyone's permission. I make it sound good, right? And it's not that easy, but you get my point.
Okay, super. So a very, very different approach than we have at Euroclear. I mean, 220 product teams, no IT department anymore, and I understand you have a catalog of cloud services that your teams can shop, and so it's kind of a best of breed multi-cloud approach that you have as well, Rasmus, correct?
Oh yeah, multi-cloud. That is a must. And I think most companies are de facto multi-cloud. We have decided to be strategic multi-cloud. And that is because we talk a lot about logins, right? I don't know, we will touch on that today. Okay. But you have a technology login, that's one thing. You have a data login, that's another thing. And I think when you move to cloud, you need to be careful of the commercial login. So if you put all your eggs in one basket, this is an old story, well, then the egg seller decides the price, right? But if you have more baskets, to stay in the analogy, well, maybe more baskets to pick from, maybe you have a better chance of not being commercially locked in to a single vendor. Okay. So multi-cloud, think of it as technology login, right? Data login, but also commercial login, and you need strategies for all of them.
Well, and we'll come back to that discussion in a moment. Thank you so much already for raising that, Rasmus. Let's go to Vasco and let's hear the hybrid cloud strategy as well from Swiss Re, and what lessons that you have learned, because you have, I mean, Swiss Re, you've been with cloud computing now for 10 years or longer already. So tell us a little bit of story and lessons learned from your side, Vasco.
No, sure, right, and I think it's somehow listening to already to Tony Rasmus. I think there's some commonalities here, but let me just go through what has been our experience. So actually, Swiss Re started its move to the cloud, about 10 years ago, and the first step was basically moving from on-premise to a private cloud setup. Right, and today, actually, most of our estate is running in the private cloud. And if I reflect a bit, what was the problem that we're trying to solve, including prior to my time? But the main opportunity there is really to have our teams focus on the IT bits that are truly differentiating for the company, and where we can add value, as opposed to managing, bare metal and hardware life cycles and all those things, right? So that was really a first step that we've taken, and what we ended up with is a very simple and standard set of services that we use, particularly around storage, compute, virtual machines, and so forth, right? So that was the first step. About 3 years later, so after 14 and about 17, we started doing some public cloud experimentation. So there was actually a new business opportunity that we were developing internally, and we've built a fully cloud native platform to support that new business at Swiss Re. And then more strongly in 2020, we've announced internally what we call a cloud transformation, which basically meant a much more purposeful transition from the as is to a to be that is fundamentally public cloud. So we are going through that journey. Today, we've moved and redefined a substantial number of applications, and going back to the question you asked, right? So what are the key lessons learned, right? So I think I'll probably just repeat some of the things that have been said, but for me, what is really important is we should always keep a focus on the why we're doing this. And I'm sure it applies to many of the colleagues in the panel. We have to sit with your executive team, with your boards, and you explain why we're doing this. We need to be, very clear about the commerciality of the opportunity that comes with going to the public cloud. I think the other thing as well is there are clearly challenges and opportunities that come with adoption of public cloud technology, but some things that we probably won't have to worry about when we think about on-prem or even private cloud setup. And the way I like to explain this in very, very plain terms is as long as you have your company running workloads in the public cloud, there's this thing in between called the internet that of course also has to be managed. So Swiss Re is a regulated company. Of course, security is very important for all of us, and also for Swiss Re. So what is very important is the platform, the public cloud platform we provide, it really has to bring a set of guardrails, and that's in terms of security, but also in terms of standard products, policies, controls, just to make sure that multitude of opportunities, new technologies that one can leverage in the public cloud are also well controlled, right? So if you ask me, what are the key learnings from this journey? I mean, clearly, that first step going to the private cloud gave us the first step into standardizing and getting us to an abstraction level that is closer to what should be the focus of our team. So that was a very positive move. And now as we go more into the public cloud, I would say it's very important to keep the notion of what is the commercial value of what we're doing. So for us, lift and shifts, for example, are an absolute no-go, right? Because we can't articulate what are we solving by taking that approach. Secondly, making sure that those guardrails are in place, and that's also seen in terms of the developer experience. DevSecOps is standard in the company and adopted at scale. And then the last piece, and I will discuss a bit later, is there's a lot more accountability that goes to the application teams, for example, with regards to cost and cost management. So we need to be very mindful about what does that mean, and equipping those teams with the right tools to do a good job in that regard. So it's very different to managing certain workload in the private cloud or on-prem.
Okay.
Over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Vasco. And so maybe Ali, I want to go to you. Maybe have some questions for the gentleman here, or how would you? What do you? I mean, if we think about hybrid cloud, what are the challenges and opportunities that legacy systems present in the hybrid cloud environment, and what's the Google approach there? I mean, some of the companies are here 160, 100 years old. So lots of legacy around in these big corporates. How do you look at that from Google's point of view?
I think we're always going to encounter, because legacy is a matter of time, right? A definition of whatever was happening 6 months ago or maybe much earlier. And oftentimes companies are reluctant in renovating these back-end systems. As they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So in some cases that's true, but as the pace of innovation and disruption increases, we see an increasing trend to actually start transforming these systems into things that are more nimble, more agile, more directed towards business-aligned strategies. So having openness and open standards, open interoperability is really critically key here. For example, with Google Cloud, we have notions around how you can span your data across multiple clouds. For example, we have an offering called BigQuery Omni, which allows cross-cloud data and analytics solutions to materialize, whether you're on Google or Azure or AWS. You can span all of these, have your data where you want it to be, and yet be able to have a central point of control. This is powered by our Anthos technology, which allows us to deploy and manage infrastructure and applications across clouds. So Anthos is our hybrid and multi-cloud solution for companies, because we recognize that in order to have openness, you need to be able, you can't migrate everyone to one thing. Vendors have every reason to be relatively agnostic or span multiple clouds for various reasons, whether they're historical reasons or different lines of business within the company. So you need to give them the ability to leverage things across clouds.
Okay. Rasmus, maybe just a moment back to you. I mean, you're 91 years old, a lot of legacy. How do you turn that into 220 product organizations? I mean, there must still be some monolithic big applications running around there, no?
Nope.
No?
Oh, I'm kidding. Of course we have. Yes, of course we have. I mean, as any company of age, you have sort of, they all describe it as the core, right? So classically, ERP would sit there. You might even still have HR systems there. So all the classic core disciplines that's been around for a while. And then as any good company, you had built your digital consumer business on top of that, right? So you're direct to consumer. So in our case, Lego.com, and that both that customer engagement and consumer engagement, and also e-commerce platform there. So I would say what we're doing right now in this example is that it's a strangler pattern, right? So we're basically decomposing the core at a very high rate. So since we adopted these new product organizations, but been much easier to spot the easy opportunities to decompose the core. So not 100%, but almost. For example, our e-commerce is now decoupled from the core. HR is moved to a software as a service platform. So slowly we are decomposing this classic monolithic core. And I would say, even though it's super difficult, because it's your core business processes that are in here, we are doing it at pace, but it requires investment, right? But I don't think enterprises have a choice, because if you don't modernize the core, everything will struggle. And I've seen this at my own networks, professional networks, again and again. Your digital initiatives will suffer, or suffocate, I would even call it, if they can't breathe your business processes, right? And if your business processes aren't exposed via APIs that are easy to consume in a good, secure, reliant way, then all your digital initiatives will die in the process, right? Because you can do the obvious one, right? The ones that are fully decoupled. But if you really want integrated digital processes, you need to modernize the core.
Okay. Great. Carl, let's maybe go to you for a moment. From Microsoft perspective, I mean, we talked about hybrid cloud, multi-cloud. Where do you see for the different strategies, let's say, the different strengths and challenges?
Yeah, I think listening to everybody talking here, there's a commonality of, this multi-cloud hope that, you can gain the best of all worlds, independence from one vendor and lock in. What I'm not hearing is when you choose multiple clouds, when you choose hybrid private, you're creating a certain sprawl of your landscape, right? I mean, you are literally splitting up your organization and managing that organization of, different hardwares, different cloud vendors. It's not an option really to have multiple security vendors, multiple monitoring vendors. And so I wonder how these organizations are managing, that control plane. At Microsoft, we like to think of, you write it once, you deploy it anywhere, right? I mean, it's an adage we've used for a long time, which means I can create a script which will deploy something in the cloud, hybrid, or in a private cloud. It doesn't matter where it is, it's the same language. So we work very closely with, a cloud orchestrated control plane. So a view of everything, single pane of glass. I hate the marketing term, but it kind of sets the analogy really well. And then projecting those resources wherever they are into the cloud through a technology, that is vendor agnostic, right? So can we actually do that so that, Lego or anybody else can manage multiple clouds with a single vendor? And so I challenge people on the multi-cloud myth. Are you really reaping the benefits of everything by going to the single common denominator? It's interesting. It's a trade-off, right, which you're making.
Okay.
But Microsoft is there. Microsoft is there on the hybrid cloud or private, right? I mean, we've been there a long time. In the beginning, it was, you must go to the cloud. That's the only destination. Looking back now, everybody's realized some workloads are coming from the cloud back down on premises, right? For sovereignty, for other reasons.
Okay, who wants to pick up on that? Because I think we're coming to a core point of the discussion here today, right?
Maybe I start and Rasmus also is going to chip in. I think you're getting one of the classical, vendor user kind of dilemmas. So there is a difference between suppliers, and interoperability is a real thing. So if you really leverage the benefits of a particular provider, they have a different twist to it. So it's always a real balancing act, not just a theoretical view that when you make these choices, you actually commit to a vendor. And I like the image of a single pane of glass. It tends to be more a constellation of fractals than one single view, which is what seems easy, actually it's not. So it's a very difficult thing to balance out, and you have to be very conscious when you go deep in one particular provider. You are by default, and I think all of us are old enough to know that you don't move away from it. You create by default. I think I like the image of a legacy over time. So it seems like a very smart choice, but you kind of can be tied to it for a very long term, because it's the trade-off between, if you really use in a very precise way the capabilities of a provider, they're not portable easily. If you remain very generic, yes, it's easier, but then you don't benefit always from the full benefit of what one specific provider. So, and every provider has a different spin to, yes, I'm interoperable. Real life is that the devil is in the details of those kind of statements. So it's way less obvious to execute than the marketing brochure praise. But again, everybody's working on it. It's an industry thing. But you have to be very mindful when you kind of you get married. It tends to be something that's going to last for a very long time.
Okay. Somebody else?
Yeah, if I may, having a role that works with thousands of cloud providers all over the world, I think that's a very relevant point, actually, Antonio. And from my perspective, I can see the advantages and disadvantages that certain providers have around the world, even in the different locations, right? A VM is not a VM is not a VM. A partner is not a partner is a partner. Everybody has skills and strengths, and I think that's one of the interesting things. I see a lot of customers that are, looking at specific workloads into specific geos or regions with a specific partner, because that partner has absolutely, a set of skills, strengths, and also a technology stack that lends itself very well to that individual workload or application. So I see quite a lot of that around the world. So I get the benefit of, the comment you said, Carl, but I think there's both a commercial cost-effective benefit and also a technology benefit of going, potentially multi-cloud or best case use scenarios for the individual workloads that you're trying to run in that service. So, I mean, honestly, from a Red Hat perspective, we look at it from in that way, and we basically say, look, our technology is standardized. It doesn't matter if you run our technology on-prem, you can run it physical, you can run it virtual, you can run it on bare metal, you can put it in your private cloud, you can run it in a hybrid cloud. It's available in 2,000 odd cloud providers around the world, because that's what our customers are asking us for. And if you put that standardization technology into your portfolio moving forward, which is what we do with all of our 3 platforms that we've got, then that helps customers when it comes to these choices and providing them the flexibility.
Okay.
But if I can go back to Carl's question, because I really like it, I think we need to maybe change the paradigm up a little bit here. So if you view that the IT department is procuring cloud services and becoming multi-cloud, yes, then you're adding complexity. But if we look at it a little bit different on the business outcomes, so each business outcome can choose whatever cloud provider best fits the technology platform that they need, then actually I think the role of you could say the central platform, so what was the IT department, in our case we call it cloud enablement, is to be a broker. So I don't view myself as the one that buys cloud, even though I own our cloud contracts, but I expose the cloud providers to the internal ecosystem, and I create this healthy marketplace of cloud provider services to my organization, so that each and every product team can choose whatever platform best fits their need. Now, that does not mean we are multi-cloud by strategy, but it doesn't mean that every product or every business outcome should be multi-cloud. Far from it. I would actually say you need a crazy critical business process in order for you to justify the cost of having something that runs across multiple cloud providers. That is super expensive, very complex. But that you have product A that uses, now we are in the company of Google, and product B that uses Microsoft, and that doesn't add complexity. Yes, you have a little bit more governance of your contracts centrally. You need to do a little bit more enablement. I think you need a certain size of company for you to relate to what I'm saying now, right? But if you have that size of company, you can absorb that work into a small central product team, in our case, and really reap the benefit of the healthy technology ecosystem. I talked earlier about the commercial logins, right? And then tapping into the innovation of the cloud providers. These companies have insane R&D budgets, right? Now is the season of keynotes, and I'm just blown away by the keynotes of every cloud provider out there, right? Just, it's insane. And why would I ever want to compete with that? I want it all.
Okay, I think that's a nice, if we do a summary of this debate, I want it all is maybe a good title for this this conversation. Thank you for that. Vasco, what's your view on this? And maybe let's also shift the discussion a little bit more in the direction of money, resources, cost management, and so on.
Yeah. So by the way, I really appreciate the provocative, quote unquote provocative question from Carl, right? And I think there's just reflecting on what the colleagues shared. So my view is actually very similar to what we just heard from Rasmus, right? So for me, it's very important that the services, so the infrastructure services that provide to the various product teams at Swiss Re, that there is enough choice such that picking up a technology is not because of infrastructure, but it's because of the value that it brings, or because of we get access to, so we can problem solve and produce a business outcome. And practically what this means, in some cases, we don't need, yet all the, the benefits that we can get from a public cloud service. We'll get there eventually. But I think also it's very important to say that there's a transformation cost that we need to factor in. So in theory, if the transformation cost was zero, I think it would be much easier to answer Carl's question, just say, yeah, why don't we just go into one that eventually will provide everything? but that cost well, clearly is not zero. And I think that leads to the follow-up question you're just asking, Henrik, right? So for us, I think the other, the sort of the implicit learning that we have from this journey to public cloud is clearly there's something about skill set that is very novel, right? And I think Rasmus just mentioned, like, the pace of change that we see with the hyperscaler offering. It's fascinating, right? If you look at where we were with general availability of Gen AI services 12 months ago, there was none, right? And now we have every kinds of experimentations and a lot of excitement as to where we can go there, thanks of course to hyperscaler sort of offerings that we're very much grateful for. So I think this whole notion of what it takes to be effective and to make an impact in the public cloud situation, what is the level of skill mastery, is something that is super important, especially for the companies out there just starting now. Don't underestimate what it takes to really upskill, to learn what it takes to build in the public cloud, to take consideration of security or infrastructure as code, or even picking up like the right services from the multitude of possibilities there are. And just think about like database technology or data analytics. There's so many possibilities, and sometimes having a lot of optionality is good. But I can tell you also, as someone that has to manage this for the company, we have to make choices. We have to look at what are the things that we really need, what are the things that are probably not as needed, and how do we focus on keeping that very streamlined setup of services that are clear and available for everyone. I would also like to bring the topic of cost, right? Because of course, cost is a very broad topic. So we could if you look at things like business case around public cloud and all of TCO, so there's a lot of things you can discuss here. But there's actually something very practical, which is really how do we do cost management, or let's say focus on the FinOps, right? And this is where I have to say also one of our learnings is we really had to build a capability, and that capability, by the way, is not just central. It's central, certainly a lot more distributed. So every product team needs to, as part of their skill set, needs to be familiar with the cost consequences of the technical choices that are being made. And if you look at, again, at what it takes to build a secure application, a resilient application for us in a regulated company, so these topics are very important. It all adds up, right? And I think what I would say is the three most important takeaways from having adopted FinOps at scale in our firm is, the first thing is we have to we've produced full transparency on cost consumption. So basically on the consumption of in the public cloud, and more importantly, we've made sure that this is direct cost. So this cost is not different to any other direct cost that hits a product team, and that has to be managed with the same rigor, right? But that transparency, what it does is, as soon as we have that cost allocated and transparent, then those teams, they basically they are accountable for it, and they have to manage it. The second thing that we've invested in, and it helps, of course, creating that rigor, is we make cloud consumption part of the core planning for our cycle. So the same way we plan, for example, workforce, or we plan our budgets, we also plan cloud consumption, because that is clearly we will manage and we'll monitor the adoption and the adherence to those plans as we do to any other type of cost. So making cloud consumption part of that direct cost planning it was very important for us. And then the third one is what we've seen is it's quite easy to come up with ideas or opportunities for improvements or for efficiency. So we can look at public cloud tenant and look at, okay, what are the resources that have been used for a period, or what are the resources that are running over the weekend and are not needed because nobody's working necessarily. So there's a lot that we can monitor centrally and identify. What we found very useful is find a way to make sure that what those opportunities are that are identified, they are allocated again to the respective product teams, so that they know they get some guidance as to what needs to be, what are the opportunities to optimize, and make this part of actually of the backlogs of those product teams, right? And I think it's, if you think about it, it's like a graceful cycle that combines awareness, transparency, accountability, but also then something that is very tangible about what can be done to progressively improve the consumption in the public cloud.
Okay. Antonio, how's FinOps, how far are you with that in Euroclear?
I was listening, and I was feeling the same pain that Vasco was referring to. This idea that if you just open the bar, everybody believes it's like free service. I think I share the same concern.
There's no free lunch, right?
Well, you pay for that in the end somehow. So we have kind of comparable experience. It's a way more decentralized model that requires some training, and then which is not obvious to start. So we are kind of like in that journey to explain. Yet it seems like a very interesting thing because everything is available. And Rasmus was pointing to this incredible innovation pipeline where there's always something else you can use because they churn these things out at an incredible pace, but they have a cost somehow. So we're trying to find a way to allow people to access, but be mindful that we control what is needed and not what is nice to have. And it's not obvious today. So it's one of the things where we're trying to keep the tap under control, is that we don't get out of control in the process of enabling innovation. So it's a bit where we are. I think probably we're less mature than what Vasco was referring to, but we feel the same concern that if you're not mindful to keep this discipline in the usage, it backfires as a cost factor. And then cloud adoption becomes not an enabler, but actually a problem because you'll see it, oh my God, costs are under control. So it's one of the things we learn, which is not necessarily engineering-wise, because it's not always teams who are sensitive to that. There's a cost dimension that you need to integrate in the way you think about processes and actually consuming tech.
Okay.
The other model was easier. You build the stuff, it's somewhere, you visualize it, so you were used to the techniques of managing those like on-prem kind of models. This is different because you don't see it coming.
I sometimes have the idea that nowadays you need to have a PhD in cloud computing to just follow what's going on. I mean, the thousands and thousands just SKUs that's coming out, all the different things that you can buy in the cloud. It's a full-time study just to follow up on that, no? So it's allowing us to be more scalable, more agile, and so on. But it comes with some complexity to manage the internal stuff as well, I would say. So money is an important thing, but human resources are very important as well. Colin, maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I mean, there's a skills shortage out there. So how do companies make sure that they find the right skills, and how can we also make sure that we automate the governance and the management of cloud and multi-cloud, hybrid cloud?
Yeah, that's a great question, and 100% there is a shortage of skills, and again, but depending on the technology as well. We get a lot of feedback from customers that are utilizing our application development platform, our Kubernetes platform, OpenShift, and that is there's an absolute skills shortage within the marketplace. That's why we've moved to helping customers. A lot of customers are using it on-prem, but now they want to consume it in the cloud. Well, they may move to the cloud with OpenShift. It's available all over the world. But that still involves a load of management and a load of skill sets they didn't necessarily have, or skill sets from. So we created kind of managed services, if you like. So some of the feedback we actually got from our customers were that the skills that they needed to run the platform they didn't have. So okay, fine. They were quite happy to take a managed service. Our partners here will run the managed service, and that kind of. It doesn't take away all of the skill set capabilities that you require, but it certainly does make a lot of it a lot more easier. The other part where we're having a lot of conversation with customers around skill shortage and how we address that is in the automation piece. So Red Hat has Ansible automation platform, again available around the world on various cloud providers, and again a technology that can be used on-prem. And automation is a very powerful idea, with automation you can accelerate deployment, reduce risk of human error, for example, reducing the necessary headcount that you need to achieve the tasks, and even look at some of the geographical issues and concerns with some of the conversations around data sovereignty and things like that. So we are trying to help our customers address the skill shortage gap by automating, adding that technology and that automation technology into our customer base around the world.
Very good. Thank you so much. Adi, Karl, maybe you want to chip in a little bit. I mean, there's this. I mean, we already touched on it, but AI is such a big thing, and it's living in the cloud. Ali, it's your professor, it's your thing. Tell us a little bit what we can expect, and maybe also on how AI can really start to help cloud people, infrastructure people to. When do we get a self-managed cloud? Is that on the horizon as well?
I guess, in listening to our colleagues discuss this, one of the things that really resonates is that the skills shortage can, to some degree, be augmented through reliable, responsible conversational agents that can help people to a large degree. Of course, it's not going to replace the critical roles that humans play, but it can definitely provide augmentation. And that augmentation can start with very basic things like getting access to a consolidated view of multiple documents together so that you can have a response. It can move, as Hendrik, you were mentioning, in the direction of generating code, providing insights into different kinds of configurations that can be adopted very rapidly. So there's definitely the need for the human arbiter and the person who is invoking and utilizing these systems. But I think our productivity in general will skyrocket. Now, the downside of that, with acceleration, comes the risk of things that, as cloud providers and providers of generative AI, we need to be aware of. So we put in the necessary guardrails, we manage the risk, we ground the results in things that are reliable, we bring back citations, so we're sure that the language model is not hallucinating by bringing back a link that says, this is where I got this from, so the human can verify it. So in a nutshell, I think the augmentation of skills can be had both from a knowledge perspective and an operational perspective. So I think we're taking very major strides in that direction.
Okay. Carl, your point, your view on this?
Yeah, I think it's great points that Ali made. We see, going back to what everybody said about managing cloud and costs, all the big vendors have cloud adoption frameworks and skill sets and analyzing, where your spend is, policy to control spend. So, if you tie that to something like a Copilot, I have to use a Microsoft term because we're using Copilot everywhere now, an Azure Copilot to help you manage your subscription, a Teams Copilot. It really is that kind of sidekick, that security Copilot or GitHub Copilot. They are not doing all the work for you, right? They are literally augmenting the work that you do, and it's up to you whether you let them take action or not. And when you close that final loop between a security vulnerability being found and taking an action, that's when really kind of AI is going to start flying and doing some interesting things. Right now, we're just looking at things like, best practice analyzers and running those. Those were very static. Now what AI is doing with, say, security graphs is looking for suspicious activity, which was very difficult to spot in the past. So these co-pilots alerting you to these kind of problems that you may have, or these costs which are escalating or skyrocketing, they're a great way to kind of augment your teams and do more with less. And, going back to Colin's point, if you can run managed services, if you can have your cloud provider do a certain amount of work for you, yes, you're moving towards a vendor lock-in. Sorry to come back to that, but you are trading off, where do you want to focus your efforts? If you're able to manage something and do it yourself, great. If you're not able to do something, then lean on it. But at the end of the day, I think the AI story leverages data. It feeds on data, and without the right data, AI will be fallible. AI will be awesome if it has the right data to do its job.
Okay, great points. And we're really looking forward to a personal assistant for all of us and all the different tasks that we are doing. I mean, we don't know what we don't know, so it's amazing to try just to visualize where it's going to be in 12 months, let alone 5 or 10 years, right? with all this stuff that's coming our way. So another point that I wanted to touch on quickly and open the floor to all of you. I mean, what I still get the feeling, we're not making life simpler, right? With adding cloud and having a hybrid and multi-cloud, life is not getting simpler. And so complexity is here today. Complexity is going to stay. It's a big challenge for organizations to reduce this complexity, but complexity also comes with risk. I mean, we have two very key financial organizations here. So security is a big thing. How do you manage security in a cloud environment? How is this completely different than before? What are the challenges that you're facing, and how are you solving these, Vasco and Antonio?
Yeah, no, look, I think we've briefly touched upon this topic of complexity already. So clearly, if we have a multi-provider setup, I mean, it's impossible to say, okay, yeah, it's simpler than not having it. So that's obvious. I would say, though, that I think we should also accept a certain level of complexity, but it's important to know where it is, and it should be a bit like the lock-in discussion. I mean, lock-in is unavoidable. Actually, there's some really good narrative around. Okay, you can reduce a form of lock-in, but another form of lock-in goes up. So it's a kind of a whack-a-mole in some sense, right? So there's no way to have no lock-in at all when you make a technological choice, right? So of course it has to be conscious, and I think complexity goes very much in the same direction. So for me, it's like clearly adoption of public cloud gives us access to things that we cannot get access in any other form. So if you think about that scalability on a Black Friday, although we are a B2B business primarily, so we don't have Black Friday, but we also have scalability for certain processes that we run. We need that, and we benefit big time from that. So that's positive. Look at the efficiency, the opportunity to automate. We spoke a bit about that. Infrastructure as code. There's a lot of great things that clearly come with that. At the same time, I think going back to what we discussed, for us, we come from a private cloud setting. So this hybrid setup is there for good reasons. And when you go back to the topic of security, for us, it's very simple. Our security principles are not negotiable, and they apply across the board. They apply for private cloud, they apply for public cloud, they apply for SaaS. When we have some on board some of the SaaS solutions for some of our processes. So I think for me, what is really important is there's some elements that are not negotiable. They are firmed up, and what we have to do, and that's part of what the work that the platform teams do, is to make sure that these principles are implemented and enforced across the board, to make sure that there's no arbitrage, a potential arbitrage. Does this mean more complexity than just having one platform? It certainly comes with some of those challenges, so that we have discussed. But I think what is really important as well is, if we have a necessary complexity, then we also plan those non-functionals. And we discussed that as a part of our OKR, our business planning, so with business stakeholders, to make sure that there are enough cycles to work on non-functionals. As you can imagine, sometimes it's not a very popular conversation because functionals are close to heart for the business colleagues. But I think there's a lot more awareness about what it means about cyber threats, what it means about managing these very proactively. So I think that dialogue and explaining why this work is needed and why that complexity is being managed is super important. I make that part of our planning with in our QBRs and ABRs.
Okay, thank you, Vasco. Antonio, you want to add to that?
Well, I think I wanted to share something, but just a bit like adding on what Vasco said. I would echo the same thing. That's stuff which is non-negotiable. Like regardless of the way you host or you deliver service, there's some lines you cannot cross, especially when you're regulated. But I think that's true everywhere in terms of delivering or delight to our clients. I think that what I would add is very often cloud is an opportunity to re-platform, redesign, rebuild. And then you work on things which are, even in running secure, there's things you accepted for years. And again, we're not 160, we're like 58-year-olds. So we have a bit of like history also. So, but when you have like cloud means very often like rewrite, reimagine something, then you're going to address things which ingrained in either your complexity or some like security loopholes or less resilient things, but you take the opportunity to bring that to standards. So you have the challenge of being more complex and trying not to be more complicated, which is not always the case. But because it's an opportunity to rewrite or reimagine, sometimes you can actually fix stuff that you decided not to do consciously, that you're going to tackle it. So there's also a window of getting better that cloud brings, which is like kind of like the opportunity gain we get out of these projects.
I'm going to jump in here for a second and add to that. I think I'm going to say something very controversial, just for the fun of it and mix it up a little bit. I think it's time to have something like a chief complexity officer, or some notion like chief simplicity officer. I don't know.
That's better,
right? So the idea is, I know we all handle complexity, and that's what we do day in and day out. We manage complexity for ourselves, our partners, our customers, etc. But at the same time, someone really needs to centralize the policy around complexity, meaning just as we handle risk, right? So I think maybe the chief risk officer may be an appropriate place to do that, because we need to identify at each level what is an acceptable level of risk. In a similar way, I think we need to identify what is an acceptable level of complexity at that particular level. We talked about hybrid cloud and multi-cloud. For different organizations, this would be like Rasmus was mentioning, in some organizations, some lines of business, it's absolutely imperative to maintain that. In others, as Carl and Colin were saying, it's just unthinkable because it introduces too much complexity. So I think it's about the policy that we introduce into the organization at different levels. Some levels of complexity are acceptable in certain areas, but having that tacitly done, implicitly done, is what's happening today. And that's why I call for a chief simplicity officer role within organizations.
Okay, we've got a private chat here going on, and Carl is calling names on Rasmus that he's the chief simplicity officer. Do you agree with that, Rasmus?
Yes. I strongly believe that it is my job as a technology leader to drive down the cognitive load of our product teams. So the frontline engineers building awesomeness for tomorrow. And I can also throw in a controversial comment here.
Good.
I believe that hybrid cloud is a transitional state. If you think that's the destination, I don't think you're being ambitious enough. Now, I don't know your context, right? So that's why it's controversial. But let me unpack that a bit. I don't believe we should be competing with the global cloud providers for commodity hosting. I think we need to, yes, re-platform, because if you just lift and shift, then you will have a more expensive data center. And there's many business cases out there that has been proven wrong. So you need to re-platform. And back to the strangler pattern I said in the early, it takes time. You need to move as much as possible software as a service. If you are in your data center running other people's software, then in my book, you need to wake up. It's 2023, and that's a pattern from the 80s, right? So we procure software as services and let the engineers run their own software, right? It's back to the good old DevOps mantra. If you build it, you run it, and you will find when you look in your data center, you are running other people's software. Now, what's left then is what you built yourself, and you should be able to re-platform that. Now, I know there's legal constraints, all kinds of physical constraints, etc., and you also need to cater for that. I have factories all over the world, but they are not hybrid, right? They are a deliberate state where I provide edge computing services. So they are data centers, but they're very niche for that purpose specifically. We can also call it frontline compute or edge compute or whatever you want to call it, right? Give it a name. But that is something that is designed for that. And then all the commodity hosting, that is what we put in cloud, right? All the central compute is put in cloud. The decentral one, yes, until AI comes up with a solution for that, we will run it ourselves, but for a specific use case only.
Okay.
So hybrid for me is a transaction while you cut off your long tail technology, because just face it, you're still running compute like you did in the 90s, right? But you have appended all the new stuff you got with cloud and software as a service, etc. But if you don't start chopping off the tail, then the cognitive load of your IT department or your product teams is just going to go increase, right? So let's cut off the tail. Let's get rid of the data center. Let's do specific use cases for edge and frontline, and let's use cloud for the extreme multi-tenancy so that product teams can go and be awesome at their own rate.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, we could go on for hours and with this panel, and that's, of course, our challenge, but we've got only 5 minutes left. So I want to give all of you your last 30 seconds of fame here. So, and the question is, how can we increase agility, reduce complexity, increase agility, increase simplicity in our organizations? So let's do the round of the table here. And so what is the one tip that you would share with our audience today on how they can make sure that they stay agile, that they can increase their agility and reduce the complexity? Ali, I would like to start with you, please.
Great. So I'll go back on my comment there and address it by saying that there needs to be a monitoring of business alignment with the policies that we design, because every choice we make has an implication of building legacy, implication of complexity. We need to define policies within the organization that are constantly monitors with the CFO, the chief risk officer, and the business, essentially, to make sure that the policies remain aligned with the business objectives and with the budgetary constraints that we have on an ongoing basis. But those policies need to be made explicit, is the main import of what I'm trying to say.
Thank you for that, Ali. Antonio?
Focus on value. So we all build useless tests, but we never know what is the useless part until we realize it after. So focus on value and try to be disciplined about what is value about and how you deliver that.
Okay, thank you, Antonio. Carl, what's your number one takeaway for our audience today?
No, I like the broker analogy. So, don't build platforms, just be a broker. But from my side, I would say automation, data-driven automation. I still stand by that. If Ali said, you've got to be able to detect something, you've got to be able to do something quickly. And it's not about humans doing things anymore. The size of the networks we have, they demand automation. And at some point, they'll demand AI.
Okay, very, very cool. Thank you for that, Carl. Vasco?
Yeah, so for me, that proximity to what the business or what is the commerciality of what we do is fundamental. And think about the incentives that you bring to your teams, and are you incentivizing enough the collaboration and automation and producing commercial outcomes? Because without incentives, it's much harder to get that.
Okay, super. Thank you, Rasmus. What's your number one lesson that you can share to make sure that organizations are more agile?
Well, I don't want to repeat what is already said, right?
Also say
about
something new then.
Data, cloud, APIs, right? That will give you a loosely coupled architecture. But let me append to what's been said.
Good.
Generative AI is gonna rock the boat, right? Because just imagine that you are there in the front line creating value for your company. But much of the time you spend is learning new, right? Learning new stuff, understanding the guardrails and learning new stuff. Now you have it integrated in your prompt, right? And you can just move faster within the policies that Ali talked to, within the context of your business, right? So I really think, for me, this is something we need to pay attention to.
Okay, super. And then last but not least, Colin, what is your one thing that you want to share? And if you would please also summarize a little bit what you have learned in this wonderful conversation this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Do you know what? I've had a great time on this call. I think there's been some extremely an extremely capable panel. So thank you very much indeed for joining. But and some great advice around how to look at mastering the cloud. For me, I think a lot of this is around have a clear understanding of where you want to go, what you want to do, what are the business objectives you're trying to achieve. But more importantly, I think it's always about looking to the future a little bit. And what I mean by that is try not to go down the scenario of using services or solutions that don't allow you to change and provide agility moving forward. So think about the vendor lock-in piece as you move down the road with your cloud strategy. The other bit as well, which I find quite interesting, is and the one that actually comes up quite often when I speak to customers is the cultural change that is required with cloud. So maybe, Hendrik, we have another session at some point on the cultural change that cloud computing, how you master the cultural change around cloud computing moving forward, right? So, okay. But for everybody on the call, thank you for joining, and for everybody that joined us online, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.
No, thank you also from my end. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. Thank you for people attending the conference today. I've got a couple of last announcements, of course, and that is that I'd like to thank Red Hat that sponsored and made this conference possible today. Don't forget to check out the long format videos, the leadership deep dives that we've done with Antonio, Carl, and Colin, and many other digital leaders and IT executives from Europe and around the world. Very interesting. Make sure to order your copy of the CIONET cookbook, Red Hat, Intel, and CIONET production. And with that, I would like to thank the panel again. I would like to thank everybody that attended this conference. I would like also to give a big thank you to Kathleen Krebs, Helen Tienhaus, and Kasia Sanchez for organizing this and doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And so with that, we say goodbye, and we end with a small promo video of our favorite CIONET cookbook. See you all very soon. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye for now.